Hey, welcome back. So, just a couple classes left for us, 3 today, Tuesday, Thursday. Want to make sure that everybody is clear that everything closes down on next Sunday at midnight. Let me check the date for you. For some reason, I don't have this up in my system. The 15th, December 15th at midnight is the last day anything will be accepted for the course in order for me to turn around and turn in the grades to the college, as I have to do, as mandated, of course, and you want them on your transcripts. So December 15th at midnight, this class will kind of just shut off. You won't be able to see anything anymore except for your grades. So it's coming down. Just kind of like pre-prep your time, that if you're like, oh, I always wait until like Monday to do my assignments for Tuesday that they're usually due on Tuesday. Everything is starting to be due the 15th. So like this week, things are due the 10th, but anything assigned on the 10th or 12th will be due on the 15th. So just keep in mind that it gets shorter. It's the end of the semester. The day that you can call it your finals. Like, oh, we only had 3 days to do this. Call it your finals for that. So, yeah. So just want to let you know about that. But everybody's rolling and doing great. So there's nothing really, it shouldn't interrupt your stuff too much. We are at week 7, part 2. We're going to talk about pattern, the pattern project. And then I'll briefly talk about the computer rough draft for your graphic design presentation, but I just want to say, like, I talked a lot about it on Tuesday, so I'm not going to talk as much about it today. I think I talked quite a bit on Tuesday about it. So you can always reference the end of the lecture from Tuesday to learn more, like placing in your paper design and just putting things on top of it, like that's how you design. That's what I'd go over. I'll show you another example, like how that works. Like here's the drawing, and then you start placing stuff on top of it and knowing why that is such a great thing to do and how much time it saves you in the design process of just being able to then design and not be like, where was it exactly? Just plop it in and fine tune. It's so great, so easy. So let's talk about some pattern in design and why it's great. And we got pattern repetition. Next week, Tuesday, unity, harmony, and then the final one is variety. So I'll be good. But let's talk patterns. All right, pattern. Oh, we know what a pattern is? I mean, pattern used to have, pattern actually goes by a ton of different names. Overall, it can be a pattern, like people who make things, like when you sew, you start with a pattern. When you build something like 3D CAD modeling, they're called pattern makers. They used to be called pattern makers. They would take your pattern and make it. That's why I was a pattern maker. Big technical stuff. But we're talking about a pattern in the sense that it repeats. It's a repeated decorative design or motif that can be created throughout the repetition, through the repetition of shapes, lines, colors, whatever. So now there's another one where you think back to line, think back to shape, think back to form. Some of those projects where like line is a good one. Line is always done in pattern, hey? Like we see lines a lot. Oh, we're going to do some lines and it's going to be like 3 lines. Well, more like kind of like as soon as you have 2 or 3 of something, it becomes a pattern. So it doesn't take much for a line to become a pattern. And that's what it is. And it's such a useful part of design when you need it to be. And again, its patterns are created through these things, which is this. And that's why pattern and repetition is brought in now, and it's a principle because it involves using the elements. So any element can be turned into a pattern for the most part. I shouldn't say every. You know what I mean, for the most part. I like to speak in generalizations sometimes. Like most of the time, most every element can be turned into a pattern at some place. And it's just that ribbon. So if I do this, that's a line. If I do this, it's 2 lines. If I do this, it starts to become recognizable. Like maybe there's a reason why these are all, and then we do up to there. And if I box it out, you'd be like, well, that's a pattern. That's a series of lines that have equal or recognizable differences. No recognizable difference in the change, which I'll come up to later, which I'll talk about something later. And that is then a pattern. I do this, and it's a pattern. Even I do this and start adding shapes to it. It's a pattern. Like now it's a checkerboard pattern. Oh, I messed that one up. I made an anomaly. That's later. Don't tell them about the anomalies yet. And patterns can be simple or really intricate, which we'll get into. So then we talk about repetition in the same series here, because repetition equals recognition. We repeat stuff, say, across a design, or we repeat stuff across a brand campaign. We repeat things across a designed catalog or book, because repetition equals recognition for the reader. They understand, oh, this is happening here, then it happens here, and it happens here. And I'm a more comfortable reader because I know what's going to happen on every page, or I know what's going to happen when it comes to, when I turn the page, or if I look from one poster to another poster, I kind of understand how things are working because I can recognize it. It's repeated over and over. I understand that. And it makes us feel comfortable. We're all more comfortable when things repeat. And we could go, I could talk about psychology, and stuff, and who doesn't like that and who likes it. And then like when we do something different in it, and there's a thing when companies, people getting so very ingrained in companies, and I'm just trying to think of the best wording for this. We have a favorite company, right? And if that favorite company of ours, let's say Starbucks, because it recently happened with Starbucks, I think. Starbucks, the higher ups, the people who own it, the owners of the company, because you are not an owner, you are a patron. You go there. Some companies are like, well, our patrons are the owners. But every once in a while, Starbucks will say, let's like tweak and update our logo. Let's update the mermaid logo a little bit. So they go through a process and they pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for a design company to do research, go in and make these tweaks. And then they release it. And what happens? The repetition is broke. And they add something new. And it's new now. And what do people do? They flip out. Oh, I love the old logo. What does that mean? You loved an old logo? You loved an old image so much that you're going to get on social media and complain that you hate the new logo, which is generally just a tweaked version of the old logo. Oh, Jaguar is doing that right now. Jaguar changed their logo. And everybody gets up in arms about it because we're breaking the repetition in what is recognizable and makes us comfortable. And now it's something new. And so it's a waiting game. Okay, customers, come around. You're going to just start seeing it more. You may have liked the old one. Oh, but the old one, I remember growing up. It's a heartfelt thing. I remember my first Starbucks coffee and looking and so, but things change. And so we broke the repetition with that. And that's a big, weird thing about repetition in design. But that is what it is we see that Starbucks logo everywhere. And as soon as it changes, it's a broken repetition. We're not uncomfortable. It's all this stuff. So the repetition goes many different ways, but it is brand consistency and unity is what it comes down to. And we'll talk more about that when we talk about that unity in design next week. So the pattern can be used in a bunch of different ways. Pattern and repetition. It's so visual unity. I just talked about that. Probably far more than I should have, and brought in all those things. But it works on a smaller level too when you're doing the design. Like I just said, like if you have a cool poster, let's do another little drawing. Because we all doing cool posters. I'm actually very proud of all the work coming out of this class. It's like you guys are drawers. I love drawers. I wish you guys would come in. We're gonna build some like digital drawing stations, hopefully within the next semester, month, because I'm using a visual drawing tablet right now. But so like if I do a pattern here in this corner, or if I do something there in that corner, and then I repeat it in this corner, that's visual continuity, visual unity. And then, and then it's like the words and blah, blah, blah. But like this and this work together and help us with that. So that's like a pattern. That's repetition. I did one thing here and I do the other thing there. Repetition can be used to establish a hierarchy among the elements. Elements that are repeated more frequently will generally draw more attention, right? If I say something 10 times, it's important. If I list it a bunch of times on the poster, like apply now, apply here, like as designers, we're like, oh my God, it doesn't need to say it 3 times on the poster, but sometimes it does, or digitally when we're working on websites and we're going through websites. If there is what's the other term for it? Repetition. Oh my God, it's going to come to me later. When you have a backup for something. Oh, there's a word for like when you have a backup for something, and that's repetition. With this doesn't work, there's a backup. If people don't see it here, we repeat it here so they see it again. If they miss it here it is again. And that's used in bigger design as well. That's used in not just like web design. It can be used in paper design, flat design, call it, in all those areas. But it's used a lot in engineering. Like we have a backup. Why do you have a backup? Well, in case this one fails, there's a backup, and it just starts right up. In case people don't see my message, I repeated it here so they make sure they see it. Like we can't guarantee that stuff. And then if it's on there twice, it must be important. They named it twice. Texture and depth. Pattern can be used to just make designs look great, look cool. Patterns are so much fun when it comes to designing too. Like you can do so much cool stuff, and like naming it as a pattern isn't always like the best thing, but like that's where like really great fun design starts coming in. Is like you start playing with shapes and playing with stuff, and it whenever I do it, I don't think it's ever like a real like intentional cause. Like a lot of it comes from playing and experimentation. Like like let's take like just you start repeating rings, and I start making a pattern. But then you start looking like, oh, look at this area here. This changes the pattern. And like, how can we make it something that nobody's ever seen before? And we start like repeating this pattern, and they're like, oh, okay, these rings. Oh, look at this shape in here, and this becomes something else, and it becomes very cool. And that's something that's very nice. Oh yeah. I'm going to talk about that. I talked about brand identity in the consistency of patterns used in repeated elements. Look at your favorite brands and what's the element that they repeat. Anybody know shoes? Adidas. 3 stripes, right? 3 stripes, the brand identity, 3 stripes. Boom. McDonald's, arches. That is their consistent brand identity, is a shape that they put on everything, and it's in gold, and it's the golden arches. And that's their brand identity, and it's a repeating pattern. Emphasis, breaking the pattern or introducing variation within a repetitive can draw attention to specific elements. This is my favorite part. It's called an anomaly. I have a pattern and I change the pattern, And what happens is people are like, oh, wait, why is that different? And then it's like, it's an aha moment. And then you put very important information within the broken pattern, within the anomaly. I learned this just, I was in the same seat as you guys are when I was a freshman in college and taking I don't know if it was called Design Elements and Principles. I don't remember the original name of the class. I'd have to go look through transcripts. But I remember doing my pattern project and learning about anomaly. And for some reason, 30 some years later, it sticks with me. Like I just was always like, that's the coolest thing. And I remember working on my pattern project. I think I still have it. I did it with colored pencil. I did tiles, historical Greek tiles, and then I made one was varied, and it was like, hours. Can you imagine what you guys do now? But imagine if you had to do like a very intricate 8.5 by 11 pattern piece with colored pencils, like a lot of all-nighters. Like there's no cut and paste. Like you were like tracing one and then using carbon paper to write it again. But I love that. It's great to do it, but it's much easier now. So, and then the final one to talk about with pattern is cultural and artistic significance. Patterns are in every culture, and that's how we show it too. Think of where you come from and what the pattern is. I'm Eastern European. All those patterns, flowers, like repeating flowers and stuff like that, like very, or people wear the outfits. That's the better one. Think of those traditional outfits of your traditional background. And that's a repeating pattern. And that's a cultural and artistic significance because of that. I was just going to say something. And then I was like, oh, it's the first example. As I'd be like, oh, America really does. And I was like, no, they do. We do. What is America's pattern? The bars and stars, babe. That's our pattern. That is what is culturally significant and used for design as a recognition piece. Anybody, anywhere knows that if they see stars in red, white, and blue, or if they see these, repeating stripes, even if they're not right, because now we changed it. Now we have other signifiers with the thin blue line and other things like that. But it's based on a cultural recognition of a country, our flag. Now look at this bad boy. This is so great. It is a repeating pattern of 3 stars. Now this is one of those where I was like, man, I wish I was there. Here's the 3 stars. Red, white, and blue. And it goes again. Red, white, and blue. With a little gap. Here, here, here. And then it's shifted. And then it's moved. And then shift, like 1980. Apple computers with their big introduction of the Apple Mac was 84. Computer aided design wasn't a huge thing. Was barely a thing. Somebody did this by hand and figured out this patterning by hand. And then figuring out if I only start to color in certain parts to make the blue star, the red star, and there is white, very hard to see, and overlap. Oh my God. Like there's parts of this I was like, oh my God, I could never do that. But then there's parts of me like, I wanna spend like 8 hours and just zone out and then wake up and be like, like start on this project and then like wake up 8 hours later, like it's dinner time, be like, what happened to the time? But look what I made. Like it's one of those things. Getting in the zone when you design, it's so great. Let's check out this guy. This got anomaly in it. It's not moving over for me. There we go. I got to keep my tools handy here, and they don't always move properly either. especially when I do this. All right, so this jug, I don't know what it's for, but I love this design. I love this teardrop, this flattened teardrop, so rad. The flattened teardrop is used within their logo. And so the designer took an element from this logo and did some fun things. Do I know why they did it, how they did it, what they did it? No. But what is this? It starts with a heart. Do you see that? Isn't that great? It starts with a little heart, but it's also a pattern that like it leads us through. Isn't it? Like no matter how you do it, you end up at the bottom. I always start at the top. Like I never like flow up. It's such a flow in this pattern. It's the same repeating piece, mirrored or switched 90 degrees, but it's so rad. And then the anomaly. Where's the anomaly in this piece? It's right here. This one doesn't have a little tail. Let's call it a tail. And because it doesn't have the tail, it sticks out. If it had the tail, it might not register as like different because it doesn't have the tail. It becomes the anomaly. And within that anomaly, we now put the whatever it says there. And then they just added some other information here. But there's the anomaly. Look around your house. Look on the floor. Look where you work. Anywhere you go. Pattern. That's why I throw this one in here. It's just a pattern from like fabric. Look at all your clothing. Clothing is based on pattern. Rugs are based on pattern. Even if you think it's random, there's a pattern. I believe that, no, it's wrong. Random, like it's very hard to be random, but within manufacturing, so with anything manufactured, there's a repeated pattern. It can't just be, every piece can't be different. They try to do that. So when you have flooring, manufactured wood flooring is 10 pieces repeated over and over and over, but because of the way you randomize them when you lay them out, it becomes a pattern. Tiles are the same. Everything we live in life, that you'd be amazed at the places you see patterns. And then what I like to do, and yeah, this is what I do when I'm bored, instead of pulling out the phone. You know, if I'm somewhere, I start looking at like the pattern and I try to find all the things. There's a repeat here. Oh, there's a repeat here. And I found the pattern. This one's darn obvious where the pattern is. But I do that. Like when I'm like, I'm just like staring at the wall, waiting, like, you know, doctor's office, whatever, you know, dentist. And you're like, I'm going to look for that pattern. I see it. You know, like there's the pattern. I see, there's one repeating. I found it. And it's like, you know, where's Waldo of patterns? Now, this is what I was talking about earlier. Every page. This is the catalog. 4, 5. I hate when I hit the highlighter. 4, 5. I turn the page. It's 6 and 7. Turn page 8 and 9. But when I turn the page, the great part, that's me turning the page, is when I go to this, everything that is on this is down here. If it's here, it's here. If it's got this color bar, the color bar is here. Got a picture of the person, got a picture of the person. Got what they're working, got what they're working on. Got information, got information. Like it's all, and then I turn the page, it's here, it's here, it's here, it's here. You know, and so it's comfortable. I know this catalog, and it's comfortable to me. You'd be amazed at magazines that you don't know. You know, you ever heard about a magazine, paper magazine? They sell them at some stores. They're all built on that too. Like magazines have very structured, even though you can't see it, they have very structured processes and pattern setups on pages for you to see. And then last one of this is the website. Let's make it comfortable and clear. It's all just kind of rectangles, right? Rectangle squares. It's all very comfortable though. You know, like, and everything matches everything. It's almost like that golden means of, you know, this, and then, well, there's 4 here. this shape, you know, just moves to this shape. And instead of like, oh, I'm going to add rounded things, oh, it's all square, perfectly square. It's a repeat of an element and almost into a pattern form. Square. Everything's very blocky and square. Spacing is all the same. All that kind of stuff. It's used everywhere. So that is pattern in a nutshell. Let's switch out and quickly go over your items. I think it's downloaded it. Make some patterns. Let's make some patterns. 2 line patterns, 2 shape patterns, and 2 typography patterns. Have some fun. Try some things out. Like this is again where experimenting in Illustrator is gonna do great things for you. Play around. I don't know if I talked about this enough too, and I don't know if I mentioned when you play around. When I say like play around, like I may have mentioned it early on. Like it's kind of like sketchbooking. You don't need to start here. You could start over here and really mess around and then bring it in over here. Or what I often do is I start on a whole different artboard. Like, okay, this is the artboard, but I'm going to open a new document and mess around there and then bring it in. So I'm not feeling like I'm working on top of something. Does that make sense? You know, like file, new, and I just open up some random size and and I'm like, okay, here I'm going to play with this, you know, this pattern I'm going to make. And if I do it here, I can, you know, like I'm going to turn this one 90 and then, you know, this one here, you know, like, and I can do it here with freedom. And then when I'm done, I can go copy and then properly paste it here. You know what I mean? So feel free, you know, it's free. It is a piece of paper, basically. You can make 1,000 of these and just play around. Loosen up your design. Not everything's the final, you know, and play around in other areas. And that's how a great way to become a great designer. So do some line patterns, do some shape patterns, do some typography patterns. Have some fun. Again, these get a little more cryptic and harder as we go. Finally, I'll open that back up. For the InDesign, I'm going to just do this in Illustrator just because I have them. But InDesign, like I showed you, it is exactly the same. This is exactly what I showed you. You do it in InDesign. You take those awesome rough sketches that you did that are so phenomenal that I've been seeing, and then you drop your elements in. You can take your picture and place that image just like we've been teaching you. And then if you have problems, you just reach out to me. How do I do that again? But that's where I taught you in the first couple of weeks is like in InDesign, to place an image, you do this, to crop it, you do this, and to do this, you do this. That's why I taught you that, because it comes to this stage. And then again, it's no different than Illustrator that you do in InDesign is you have your picture and then you just start populating it. Here, I'll put this, I'll put this, put this, put that, you know, my crop marks, my dots, and then I turn off my final image. And for you guys, I can do this, do that, and there's my final, you know. So that's all you need to do. And then we'll tweak. So in tweaking, I would like to tweak, you know, designs with you, send them to the midweek review. I will look at them and be like, oh, move this here, move this there, move this up, move this down. Don't be scared. Like I said, there's other classes that every student in every assignment shows it to me first, and I can make like little adjustments and little things. You guys have been doing great. I'm not worried about it. But if you ever get to that point, that is why I'm here, and that's why those midweek reviews are there. If you knock it out early, and then check it and look into it, and then come back to it. I know there's time restraints. I know there's nervousness about turning in assignments, but I don't want it to be nervous. It should be fun and easy and be like, hey, what do you think about this? Yeah, I'm going to make changes, but they're going to be changes to improve your design, not changes to make you feel bad. Like, oh no, just move this and just this. So that is that. So yeah, everybody's doing good. Everything's up to date. Oh, register for classes. Please register. I sent out a ton of emails. Please let me know what you registered for. Just return my email and be like, oh, this is what I registered for. I'm having trouble registering for this, that, or the other. It does matter. If you wait too long, and if you look and be like, oh, I think that's the one I want to take, and then you wait too long, it may fill, and or it may be changed and dropped if not enough students sign up. So this is different than lower institution like a high school or a grade school where classes run no matter what. At a college level, classes don't run unless there's a certain amount of students enrolled in that class. It can't run if it's too low. So that is why we push so hard to say register now. You can always make changes later, but if you're not registered, things go away maybe, or you don't get exactly what you wanted. So very important to register for your classes. It's very easy. Just do it, knock it out. You do it, knock it out, and then go and change it. It's very much better to go and just do it and then make changes than it is to wait till the last minute and then be frustrated because you're not getting what you wanted and it's not working out for you. So please do that. Please do that before next week, Sunday. So, all right. Thank you very much. I will talk to you, if not on the discussion boards, I'll talk to you next week, Tuesday. Take care. Thanks. Bye-bye.